You're 73.
And I feel every day of it.
While finality is important, Judge, we're ultimately just trying to get to the bottom of what the truth is here.
And I wanted to become a damn expert on DNA. I wanted everything that had ever been published on DNA. They don't want to know the truth. That's what I've been trying to tell you. All of it together, in totality. It's never been looked at like that.
No stress?
No.
No domestic problems of any kind? Did you love Eunice?
Very much so.
In the annals of criminal justice, few cases have garnered as much controversy, doubt, and debate as the one involving Tommy Ziegler. Slayings and conviction. The Tommy Ziegler case, centered around the horrific quadruple slayings that shook Winter Garden, Florida on December 24, 1975, remains a saga shrouded in controversy and uncertainty. This tragic event left 4 lives brutally taken and ignited a legal battle that would span decades. At the heart of this chilling crime was William Thomas Tommy Ziegler Jr., a 30-year-old man accused of the ruthless slayings of his wife, Eunice, her parents, Perry and Virginia Edwards, and another individual, Charlie Mays. The trial and subsequent conviction took place on July 2, 1976. In a judicial turn of events that further deepened the tragedy, Ziegler was handed an ending sentence for 2 of the slayings, while also receiving a life term for the others. Born on July 25, 1945, Tommy Ziegler found himself embroiled in a web of accusations that would forever alter the course of his life. The events of that fateful December day saw approximately 30 rounds fired within the confines of the Ziegler's furniture store. Virginia Edwards and Eunice Ziegler tragically lost their lives to gunfire, while Charlie Mays and Perry Edwards met their demise at the hands of a metal crank. The gruesome scene was marked by carnage, leaving a community and nation in shock. The prosecution's narrative painted a grim picture. They contended that Ziegler orchestrated this violent spree in an attempt to collect proceeds from life insurance policies he had taken out on his wife prior to the slayings. These insurance policies, with a total value of $50,000, were positioned as a motivating factor behind the alleged slayings. The enigma of the case deepened with Tommy Ziegler himself sustaining a gunshot wound to the abdomen. While he maintained that he was a victim of a bungled robbery attempt, the prosecution posited a theory that Ziegler had self-inflicted the wound to cast blame on others. This narrative, which suggested that Charlie Mays and 2 other men, Edward Williams and Felton Thomas, were responsible, unraveled as conflicting testimonies emerged. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Ziegler's defense maintained his innocence, and he consistently asserted that Mays was complicit in the alleged robbery. Furthermore, he claimed that Perry Edwards Jr., his brother-in-law, was the orchestrator of the entire tragedy. This assertion was made even in 2015, underscoring the complexity and convoluted nature of the case. The trial's setting itself reflected the level of attention the case garnered. Fueled by media scrutiny and public interest, the trial was relocated to Jacksonville, Florida. The jury ultimately delivered a verdict of guilty, sentencing Ziegler to demise for the slayings of his wife and Charlie Mays. For the endings of Eunice Ziegler's parents, he received a life sentence, marking a decision that encapsulated the dual nature of his convictions. Despite the conviction and subsequent legal proceedings, the Tommy Ziegler case remained mired in uncertainty and controversy. Supporters and advocates pointed to discrepancies in the evidence, inconsistencies in testimonies, and questions about due process. The case attracted attention and advocacy, with journalists, legal experts, and activists delving into the details, shedding light on potential miscarriages of justice.
Using DNA to convict the first man in the United States of America. If they can convict this man using DNA, they can clear me using DNA.
The 1970s and 1980s and the early 90s cases where there was no DNA testing, the idea of using the existing post-conviction mechanisms to get that testing was foreclosed.
Tommy Ziegler's story illustrates the complexities and challenges within the criminal justice system. The conflicting narratives, the potential for evidence manipulation, and the lingering doubts about his guilt or innocence.
We believe it's appropriate to request the court to authorize release.
To bring in whatever new evidence we also forgot?
That's not reasonable. Talking about getting to the bottom of what happened, I've not maintained a position since the beginning of this motion. Respect, you've had 43 years to do that.
Continue to spark discussions about the ending penalty, due process, and the search for truth. While the details of the crime and the subsequent legal proceedings may never be definitively settled, the Tommy Ziegler case serves as a haunting reminder of the enduring impact of tragedy, the search for justice, and the complexities that define the pursuit of truth in the realm of criminal law. Controversy. Numerous individuals, such as civil rights activist Bianca Jagger and a member of the jury that reached the decision to condemn Ziegler, have voiced their disapproval of the evidence presented against Ziegler, as well as the manner in which his trial was presided over. Maurice M. Paul, the chief judge of the trial, came under scrutiny for a number of reasons, including the fact that Ziegler and Judge Paul both provided conflicting testimony in a different case months before the endings. This was one of the reasons that brought about the criticism. During Ziegler's trial, the jury unanimously agreed to recommend that he be sentenced to life in prison. Nevertheless, Judge Paul ultimately decided to sentence him to demise. During the trial of Ziegler,
back with a recommendation of life, and the judge overruled it and imposed the death penalty. Or didn't grant clemency and just simply reduce Ziegler's sentence to life, I don't know. Not allowed anymore. Not allowed anywhere in the United States. So why in the world the governor didn't is a perfect example of something that should have been done years ago. Now, if I were the governor, I would have reduced his sentence to life years ago.
One of the most important witnesses for the prosecution, Felton Thomas, said that on the night of the slayings, he, Charlie Mays, and Ziegler drove to an orange grove to fire several guns. Thomas was one of the primary witnesses against Ziegler. The prosecution claims that Ziegler intended for this to happen so that their fingerprints would be left on the firearms. Nevertheless, in 2013, Felton Thomas presented a new version of his evidence. Lynn Marie Carty, who worked as a private investigator for Ziegler, was the one who uncovered Robert Foster, a new eyewitness, in 2011. On the night of the slayings, he made an attempt to rob a gas station that was located just adjacent to the Ziegler furniture store. The head investigator in charge of the inquiry, Don Fry, had lied about Foster, claiming that his name had been misspelled due to an error in the typing of the document. Last words. 1 week before he's scheduled to be executed in 1986, Tommy Ziegler talks with WESH2 News, saying he has no qualms about dying. The 22nd of October 1982 was chosen as the day that Ziegler would be put to demise. However, due to the discovery of new evidence, the United States District Court in Jacksonville decided to stay the ending. Harold Vernon Davids and Ralph Vincent Terry Hadley III, who represented Ziegler, argued successfully against the two attempts to carry out the ending. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeal put a stay on the ending because there was insufficient representation in the case. In April of 1988, Ziegler's conviction and sentencing to demise were overturned. After being given a new sentence, Ziegler was given a second one that included the ending penalty. In 2005, Ziegler made a motion for a new trial, but it was denied on the grounds that the DNA evidence did not establish Charlie Mays as the perpetrator of the crime. In the case of Ziegler, blood-stained DNA testing was turned down in both 2013 and 2016. In April of 2017, the request for a touch DNA analysis that Ziegler's case submitted was denied. In May of 2021, a prosecutor in Florida gave their approval for DNA testing to be performed on the evidence that was used to convict Ziegler. However, the hearing of the motion to stop it that was brought forward by Attorney General Ashley Moody is still in the process of being scheduled. On July 1, 2022, the Florida Supreme Court issued a ruling that was 7-0 in favor of Ziegler's legal team and against the attempt by Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody to impede the modern DNA testing that Ziegler's legal team had paid for.
Of additional pieces of evidence.
But to leave this order open-ended for a year, that the defense couldn't have this DNA testing. What I have maintained all along, it needs to come to closure.
Impact on the society. It was decided that the DNA hearing for Ziegler will take place on September 19, 2022. On December 19, 2022, he was granted permission to undergo a DNA examination. The reliability of evidence, and the potential for wrongful convictions. The controversy surrounding Judge Maurice M. Paul's involvement and sentencing decision, as well as the changing testimony of key witnesses, eroded public confidence in the fairness and impartiality of the legal process. The questioning of evidence led to skepticism about the reliability of evidence presented in court, highlighting the importance of thorough investigation and the credibility of witnesses. The ending penalty debate re-sparked discussions about the fairness of capital punishment.
And been done with it. If I'd been the trial judge, I would have sentenced him to life because that's what the jury suggested. But instead, a death sentence got imposed. And so now we've gone through all of this for all these years, and God knows how much money it's cost. And that way, Ziegler would have been buried in the back of the Department of Corrections, and we'd have never heard from him.
And the potential for error in high-stakes decisions. False confessions and coerced testimony were also highlighted, highlighting the pressure that witnesses may face to provide certain narratives in court. The case's media coverage played a significant role in shaping public opinion, highlighting the power of media to influence perceptions of guilt or innocence and impact trial outcomes. The doubts raised by the Ziegler case have contributed to a broader call for criminal justice reforms, emphasizing the need for transparency, unbiased investigations, and adherence to due process.
So let me get this straight. This guy goes and does an attempted robbery of a gas station, then goes across the street and murders 4 people, apparently not wearing a mask, not hiding his appearance in any way. But this is just sort of the lunacy of these continued defense tactics.
The case has become a reference point for discussions about other cases involving potential wrongful convictions, raising awareness of factors contributing to such outcomes. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.